They call it a coffin because the first glimpse resembles a swollen, pale shroud. A round head, a squat body, tiny eyes that glint like coins, and limb-like pectoral fins that let it hobble along the mud. But to call it just a corpse would be wrong. The coffinfish is alive. It breathes. It inflates. It writes a slow, liquid punctuation on the ocean floor, and then it holds that breath for minutes, as if stealing time from the abyss. There are many monsters beneath the waves. Few are this quiet and strange. The coffinfish belongs to a lineage of anglerfishes, the sea toads, a family adapted to the dark, spare world of the continental slope. Scientists recently found that these animals possess enormous, inflatable gill chambers and can intentionally hold water inside them, pausing the rhythmic pump of respiration for as long as 4 minutes. This is a ventilatory strategy never before documented in fish. The sight is almost theatrical. A rounded, soft fish, sometimes pink or crimson, perched on a carpet of silt. When disturbed, the animal sucks a mouthful of seawater into its buccal and gill cavities. The chambers billow outward. The body increases in volume, reported in some observations by roughly 1/4 to 1/3. For a moment the coffinfish seems less like hunter than cadaver, as though the sea itself had given it a false grave. Then, when the tension passes, the water is slowly expelled and the fish returns to its ordinary, patient stillness. Why would a fish hold its breath? At first the idea jars the imagination. Breath holding is a mammalian specialty, the stuff of frigidivores and seals. For a fish, water flows through gills constantly. Gulping and flushing water is how oxygen is obtained. Yet coffinfish have evolved enormous gill chambers that can be expanded like bellows, and a suite of morphological features, loose skin, broad pectoral fins, and a body plan that favors sitting rather than swimming, that together allow a new behavioral possibility: inflate, lock, and wait. The discovery was made not in a dissecting room, but on the slow-motion theater of remotely operated vehicle footage, small windows into habitats where human lungs never enter. Listen to that image for a second. A living animal that inflates itself like a balloon and then remains motionless, an inflated silence in a world of pressures and cold. It sounds like a trick, but it is biology. The inflated chambers likely serve multiple purposes. They increase the volume of oxygenated water available without continual pumping, which saves energy in an environment where food is scarce. They may reduce respiratory movements that would broadcast mechanical signals to prey and predators, and they may change the animal's silhouette, making it appear larger or less appetizing. Those are plausible roles, proposed by the research team who first analyzed the footage and the anatomy. Where the hypothesis ends and fact begins, the published work leaves us with a mix of observation and carefully argued inference. To understand the odd genius of the coffinfish, we must look at anatomy. Behind that mournful face lies oversized gill cavities, chambers lined with delicate vasculature. X-rays and CT scans show a volumetric architecture meant to be expanded. The pectoral fins, thick and limb-like, are used as props. The fish seldom swims long distances. It walks across the seafloor in a slow, deliberate lateral shuffle. These anatomical specializations tell a story. A fish adapted to conserve motion, to sit and wait, to use its body as both camouflage and mechanism. There are more than 20 named species in the coffinfish family, Chaunicida, found across tropical and temperate oceans. Some live a few hundred meters down on continental shelves. Others descend to the abyssal slopes. Their distribution is global, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, but every appearance is rare, patched together from occasional trawls, museum specimens, and fleeting ROV footage. The coffinfish is common in the sense of a lineage that exists almost everywhere, but rare in the sense that human eyes rarely see it alive in its natural theater. Imagine a hunter that has learned to stop the clock. Most predators must breathe constantly. The mechanical disturbance of gill movement and ventilation can betray them. The coffinfish sidesteps that rule by pausing the visible movement of respiration, while retaining an internal cache of oxygenated water. For an ambush predator that waits for stray fish or invertebrates to wander into reach, minimizing detectable cues is an advantage. If a potential prey item approaches suspiciously, the coffinfish's stillness is its bullet. This is not speculation plucked from romantic fancy. It is a plausible behavioral ecology derived from anatomy, from footage, and from the known constraints of deep-sea life. To make the physiology real, the authors of the landmark study examined in situ video clips collected by NOAA expeditions and then scanned museum specimens. They measured the magnitude of inflation and documented breath-holding durations ranging up to about 4 minutes. They contrasted the coffinfish's behavior with its shallow-water relatives, which breathe slowly but do not exhibit this dramatic, sustained inflation. The difference is striking. In the deep sea, where energy is currency and detection is dangerous, the coffinfish's inflatable gills become a costly but efficient investment. The behavior also raises hard mechanistic questions. How are the chambers sealed? Which muscles and valves control intake and release? How does blood flow adapt to the unusual pattern of ventilation? The published paper provides anatomical descriptions and plausible mechanical models, but many internal details remain unresolved. A space for future research, for physiologists willing to brave the technical headaches of deep-sea work. When we say we don't know, we mean it with scientific humility. Observed phenomena, constrained hypotheses, and a long list of measurable unknowns that can be addressed with better imaging and in situ physiology. If you stand at the edge of the world and listen to the ocean, you will hear myths. Indigenous sailors and deep-coast cultures have long told tales of sleeping fish and sea ghosts that drift like the dead. Modern science translates those metaphors into trait descriptions. The coffinfish's pale, bloated form and slow motions easily evoke a drowned body washed free of life. Yet nature rarely copies narrative exactly. Instead, it invents analogies that humans interpret as omen or portend. The coffinfish is both corpse and living thing, a bridge between poetic image and evolutionary strategy. Thoreau's small warning fits. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. There are shock facts that cut through the melodrama. Observers reported inflation volumes of 20–30% and breath-holding times up to about 245 seconds, roughly 4 minutes. For an aquatic ectotherm that usually relies on continuous gill ventilation, those numbers are extraordinary. They change how we classify respiratory strategies in fishes and suggest that the sea still harbors ventilatory experiments we didn't know possible. The coffinfish's life strategy is quiet and patient. It sits on the sediment, limps forward on paddle-like pectorals, and waits for a shrimp or small fish to drift into range. When prey appears, the coffinfish's mouth, often upward-facing, opens in a rapid suction strike. Its esca, a small lure typical of anglerfishes, can be a short filament or cluster of cirri used to entice prey closer. In that moment, the inflated body might play a role by changing silhouette or hydrodynamics, or by chilling the curiosity of the prey. The interplay between morphology and behavior is subtle. It is the difference between moving as a magnet or as a ghost. How does this knowledge matter beyond the poetry? First, it rewrites a functional niche. Deep-sea sit-and-wait predators have more ventilatory options than previously thought. Second, it inspires biomimicry. The idea that a sealed chamber can store oxygenated medium while minimizing external motion could inspire new designs in robotics or underwater sensor platforms that need long, silent duty cycles. Third, it reminds us that the deep sea is an experimental ground of evolution. Pressure, cold, and scarcity push anatomy into inventive corners. Leonardo would nod. The best engineers remain those who study nature closely. There are also ecological and conservation notes. Because coffinfish are slow, benthic, and often isolated, they can be vulnerable to bottom trawling and habitat disturbance. We know very little about their population dynamics. Many species are described from few specimens. The oceans are changing in temperature and chemistry, and the deep sea is not immune. Documenting and preserving such strange life forms is not merely sentimental. It is a recognition that we are erasing experiments of nature before we even understand them. Philosophy sneaks into the lab. Nietzsche's blunt observation, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how," sounds grotesquely fitting here. The coffinfish's why is survival in a dark, food-poor place. Its how is an anatomy that inflates and an economy of motion that saves scarce energy. In another register, Hemingway's line, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places," applies to the evolutionary fractures that produce odd solutions. The coffinfish is a creature made strong in its broken, pressured environment. These quotes are not ornaments, they are signposts. They ask us to interpret biology as story and to lament that we are only now learning the plot. If this dive into the ocean's quieter horrors moved you, help keep the lights on for more of them. Supporting this channel pays for time, ROV footage, and the patience it takes to read the ocean's thin handwriting. I'll keep bringing these weird, unread pages of nature to the surface. But it's a small crew and we need a small push. Link is in the description. Every backer is a ticket for another descent.